are living things all about us. Living things in the air and living things in the soil. Are grass and shrubs the only living things in soil? As part of a science project, these boys and their teacher are going to study a cubic foot of soil they have dug up and placed in a plastic container. In a profile of this cubic foot of soil, we can see a layer of subsoil and a layer of topsoil. Growing out of the topsoil are grasses and other plants. This is called plant cover. By carefully examining the layers of topsoil and subsoil, we can find living animals, such as this white grub, the larva of a June beetle. We can also find other animals that inhabit the soil. Communities of ants and larger animals. Earthworms are among the animals seemingly best adapted for living in soil. How do living things depend on soil? What are some of the relationships between soil and plants and animals? To find answers to these questions, the boys and their teacher will examine the cubic foot of soil more closely. Now, in the school science laboratory, we're ready to look for relationships between living things and soil. First, we'll have to investigate soil more closely. Let's start with the subsoil layer. What can we notice about its makeup? We see that it is composed mostly of clay and larger particles, such as pebbles. Magnification with a hand lens gives a closer view of the clay and the bits of rock that make up the non-organic material in the subsoil. This non-organic material may have come from a stream or a brook, where moving water tends to grind rock into smaller pieces. This is called weathering. The rock is gradually reduced to coarse sand, fine sand, and clay. These non-organic materials tend to be found in the subsoil. Non-organic materials may be further broken down by the roots of plants. As we know, roots do two important things. They hold plants in place. But the main function of roots would seem to be to supply water and certain chemical compounds from the soil, which the plants use to produce food materials. Some of these chemical compounds are found in humus, a dark-colored organic material in topsoil. Let's examine humus to see what we can learn about its composition. Setting the microscope for low magnification, we see that humus is made up of bits of decayed plant and animal matter. This makes it organic. Now, preparing another slide of a sample of topsoil, adding some water, and using higher magnification, we can see bacteria, simple plants. These are species of nitrogen-fixing bacteria that live in soil. These nitrogen-fixing bacteria change nitrogen into soluble nitrates used by plants. These bacteria act on the nitrogen in the air that penetrates the soil. Other kinds of nitrogen-fixing bacteria live in the nodules of the roots of clover and other legumes. So clover and other legumes are especially beneficial to soil, increasing its nitrogen content. Do we have nitrates in our soil sample? Chemists test for nitrates in humus in the following way. Some humus and water are mixed together in a test tube. Then an equal volume of ferrous sulfate is added. Now, holding the test tube in an inclined position, concentrated sulfuric acid is added. At the junction of the acid and the other solutions, a brown ring forms. This, as chemists know, indicates that the humus being tested contains a nitrate. So we found nitrogen in the soil, a chemical converted into nitrates and used by plants. Now we would like to find whether there is evidence of other living things in the soil. Several days ago, these boys placed some moist humus in a petri dish. Here's what grew on the surface: a mold. If we investigate a sample of this simple plant under a microscope, what can we see? We notice that the mold is made up of a mass of thread-like stems called hyphae. The growing hyphae of many molds enter the organic matter in the soil and help break it down. The penicillium mold is sometimes found in soil, too. It is the source of a very useful antibiotic, penicillin. Are the molds and bacteria we have seen the only forms of microscopic life found in soil? This sample of damp soil was taken from the edge of a pond and kept moist. Let's examine some of it. The wet soil sample is put on another slide. Here we see a species of blue-green algae. Like bacteria and molds, algae also contribute to the organic content of soil. In addition to algae, certain species of one-celled animals, the protozoa, also inhabit moist soil. This is euglena, one kind of protozoa found in moist soil. The protozoa we have seen are among some of the animals found in soil. Remember this grub we saw earlier? It is the larval stage of the June beetle. Sometimes when we examine soil, we may find an empty pupal case. This pupal case was left when the June beetle grub or larva emerged into its adult stage and flew away. Certain stages of the life cycles of many insects are spent in soil. By digging further into a section of soil and carefully spreading it out for observation, the boy has found ant larvae and ant pupae, grasshopper eggs, and the cocoon of an earthworm. When earthworms hatch, they become useful organisms in soil. Look carefully at this earthworm burrowing in our sample of soil. Burrowings help air circulate in soil. These little mounds on the surface of the soil are earthworm casts or wastes, which also enrich the topsoil. With a hand lens, we may discover smaller animals in our cubic foot of soil. Here we see a ladybird beetle. Here on the left is the pupa, and on the right, the larva of a mealworm. Let's summarize what we've learned about our cubic foot of soil. Animal and plant matter decay and become part of the soil as humus. We've noted that humus is a material containing nitrates, chemical compounds essential for plant life. We've also noted how plants and animals contribute to the building of soil. In the soil itself, we found and identified a number of different plants and animals. We found that our cubic foot of soil contained bacteria, molds, and algae, along with larger green plants such as grasses and clover. Examples of animal life included insects, worms, protozoa. Both animals and plants, living and dead, contribute greatly to the fertility of soil, and the soil in turn provides a basis for the growth of other living things, the plants and animals that help make possible human life on Earth.